Increase your financial IQ. Chapter number 9. Develop your financial genius. I didn't know I wasn't smart until I went to school. For 17 years, from kindergarten all the way through college, school was a struggle. I was always labeled an average student. No matter which class I was in, there was always a student who were smarter, more gifted, and faster learners than me. School seemed easy for the smart kids. School was tough for me. The only A I ever received was in workshop because I loved working with my hands. I built a boat for my school project while my classmates were making salad bowls for their moms. I also didn't know I was poor until I went to school. When I was 9 years old, my family moved across town and I went to a school for rich kids. Interestingly, there were two elementary schools directly across the street from each other. On one side of the street was Union School, on the other side was Riverside School. Both were public schools, one school for the rich and the other for the working class. Originally, Union School was for the children of the sugar plantation union workers, hence the school's name. Riverside for the school of the children of sugar plantation owners and managers. I attended Riverside School because the house of our family lived in happened to be on the side of the street next to the river. Even though I was only 9, I was aware that my classmates at Riverside School lived a higher standard of living than my family. Many of my rich classmates lived in an isolated community connected by a bridge across the river. Every time I crossed the bridge to play with my friends, I knew I was crossing into a different world. On their side of the bridge, my classmates lived in stately plantation manor homes. On my side of the bridge, homes were a lot less stately. The home we lived in was a home built for plantation workers. My classmates' parents owned their homes. My parents rented. Some of my classmates even had more than one home, many having beach houses. When my family went to the beach, we went to a public beach park. My classmates played at the yacht club or the country club. I worked at the country club. Although rich, my classmates and their families were not snobs. They were friendly people involved in the community. I spent a lot of time at my friends' beach homes, on their boats, and flying in their planes. They did not flaunt their wealth, they shared it. To them, being rich seemed natural and not special. It was a lifestyle and a standard of living. Their lifestyle was not that big a deal to them. It was I who thought their lifestyle was a big deal. Sometimes feeling uncomfortable, sometimes out of place, and acutely aware of the standard of living that separated us. At the age of 12, my rich friends went off to private schools, and I continued on through public school, high school with the kids who went to Union School. I didn't know I was a geek until I went to school. In high school, all the girls wanted to date, wanted nothing to do with me. I was not cool. The popular girls were interested in the bad boys who were older, belonged to a gang, and owned a car. Although I was a starting player on the football team and a surfer, I was not cool, not a bad boy, and didn't own a car. I was shy, fat, and drove around in our family's beige colored station wagon. Definitely not cool. In 1974, as I was getting out of the Marine Corps at the age of 27, I knew I wanted to be rich, drive fast cars, and date beautiful women. Even though I had grown up, lost my baby fat, and gotten taller and stronger in my mind, I was still the shy fat guy without much money. I knew what I wanted. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and invest in real estate, but I had no money and no skill. The more I thought about it and compared the life I wanted with what I had, the more I realized that my class school teachers were correct. I was average. I had no great skill or talent. I was not smart. If I were going to be rich, I needed to find a way to be at least above my means in every way. Don't live below your means. Financial experts advise people to below their means and diversify. To many people, this sounds like smart advice. The problem with following this advice is that you wind up average because it is an average advice. It is not a bad advice, it's just an average financial advice. Besides, you want to live below their means. In high school, students begin focusing on their academic strengths and taking courses with an eye towards high paying future careers. Kids are constantly pushed to be smart, study hard, and yet get good grades. After graduating from college, many go to graduate school, narrowing career choices to become lawyers, doctors, accountants, and MBAs. Many doctors, after years of grueling medical school, go on for additional training to become specialists such as surgeons or internists. Artistic students become artists in clay, oils, watercolors, commercial graphics, and music. Gifted students, athletes prepare for professional careers in football, tennis, basketball, or golf. In fact, if you go to athletic events, many parents scream for blood, demanding their kids play and their team wins. Nobody wants to play on an average team. Most of us know that to be successful in school and to have a successful careers, we need to do our best to be the best. We need to focus and study, we need to specialize. Yet when it comes to money, people are advised to diversify instead of specialize, and live below their means rather than live at a higher standard of living. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I did not want to get an average job and live below my means. To me, living below your means is how below average people live. I did not want to drive on an average car or live in an average neighborhood. Also know that diversifying would cause my return on investment to be below average. I knew I needed to focus. If I wanted a higher standard of living like my classmates who lived across the bridge. When I looked at the world I was about to renter after re-enter after 4 years of military school and 5 years in the Marines, I noticed that most people worked hard to be above average professionally but were below average financially. I decided the best way to beat the A students, the rich kids, the teachers who labeled me average, and the girls who were not interested in me was to become rich. I was not angry with them. I was just tired of being average. I realized I could become richer than most people because when it comes to money, most people were following below average financial strategies and advice. Why do experts recommend diversification? As Warren Buffett said, diversification is a protection against ignorance. It makes very little sense for those who know what they are doing. Buffett also said about money managers, full-time professionals in other fields, let's say dentists, bring a lot to the layman. But in aggregate, people get nothing for their money from professional money managers. I believe that when many recommend diversification, it is simply a protection against their ignorance. I suspect Buffett is saying that it's below average financial advice from below average advisors for below average investors. Warren Buffett has a different financial strategy. He doesn't diversify, he focuses. He looks for a great business as a great price. He doesn't buy a lot of businesses and pray one of them does well. He doesn't want average returns or to play the stock market. He likes to control the company but not run the company. When Warren talks about investing, his keywords are intrinsic value, not diversification. One reason financial advisors recommend diversification is that they cannot find great companies. They do not have control, and most don't know how to run a business. They are employees, not entrepreneurs like Warren. Smart guys fail. On August 24, 2007, after the market crash, the Wall Street Journal ran a story about how quantitative funds, quants, supposedly managed by some of the smartest guys on Wall Street, all lost money. Justin Lahart, how the quant playbook failed. In other words, a student received F's. The article states, even if they don't share the same statistical models, quant funds share similar approaches to the market. They are schooled in the same statistical methods, pore over the same academic papers and use the same historical data. As a result, they can easily come to similar conclusions about how to invest. In other words, Wall Street hires academic geniuses, a student and graduates of the world's best business schools who use sophisticated computer models to invest billions of dollars, and they all come to the same answer. When their models say buy, they all buy the same stocks, causing a boom, and when the model says sell, they all sell in masses, crashing the market. This is not financial intelligence, not diversification, but thinking they are diversified. I spent two very smart class. I have very smart classmates who both went on the graduate from Stanford University with PhDs. Both have high-paying jobs. One with a bank and the other with an oil company. After the stock market crashed following 9/11, both lost a lot of money, even though both were diversified. Over the years, I talked to them individually. I asked them about their investment strategy. Both said I invested in a well diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Although I did not say it, I wanted to point out to them that they were not really diversified. Instead of being diversified, they were 100% invested in paper assets, primarily the stock market. They were not in investment grade real estate, privately held businesses, or commodities such as oil production. When the market went down, it all came down. They were not diversified, but they were thought they were. They had above average academic IQ but below average financial IQs. Finding your genius. I built and rebuilt several businesses from 1974 to 1984. I was determined to become an entrepreneur, just like a baby who stands and falls a number of times before learning to walk. I stood and fell a number of times before walking as an entrepreneur. I did this because I wanted to learn to be an insider, not an outsider. From 1984 to 1994, I became an educational entrepreneur because I became interested in how people earn. Although I disliked school, I enjoy learning. Also, I wanted to know why I always felt stupid in class. During those 10 years, Kim and I built an education company that taught entrepreneurship and investing from our offices in Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Singapore, and the US. During this period of time, I did things differently, almost the opposite of the way traditional schools teach. Instead of creating an environment where only one or two students were smart, I created an environment where everyone could feel smart and learn. Instead of competing, the class cooperated. Instead of having students listen to me lecture, I created different games to teach specific subjects. Instead of being bored, adult students were actively challenged and participated. I went on to develop an educational board game, Cash Flow, from what I learned as an entrepreneurial educator, the first game to teach both accounting and investing at the same time. As you may know, accounting can be the most boring subject on earth and investing the most frightening. By combining the two subjects into one game, learning became challenging and fun. A person could play the game 1,000 times and still learn something new about accounting, investing, and themselves. The game was officially launched in 1996. As I learned more about the human mind and how we learn, I found out a number of things about our school system that was disturbing. I found out that our current system of teaching actually damages a child's brain. In other words, even an A student can be slowed up by the educational system. The more I studied and practiced different teaching techniques in my classes, the more I began to find the answers I was looking for, and I found why I had constantly being labeled stupid for, or at best above at average. Multiple intelligences. Through my research, I discovered the book Frames of Mind, the Theory of Multiple Intelligences by Howard Gardner. His work was mind expanding and validating. He teaches that there are 7 intelligences: linguistic, logical, mathematical, musical, bodily, kinesthetic, spatial, interpersonal, intrapersonal. His book validated that I intrinsically knew, I simply didn't have the intelligences recognized by the school system, which are predominantly linguistic and logical mathematical. This is one of the reasons I failed English twice in high school. I could not write, spell, or punctuate. I am not a linguistic, and I am not logical. In my freshman year at the Merchant Marine Academy, English became my favorite subject because I had a great teacher. If not for that teacher, I might not be an author today. My English teacher at the academy had great interpersonal skills, which is why he could relate to me. I respect him. Instead of talking down to me, he inspired me. We could speak person to person rather than teacher to teacher. In his class, I wanted to be smart and I wanted to learn. Instead of another F in English, I received a B. I need security. Later, as a Marine in Vietnam, it was my intrapersonal intelligence that kept me alive. Intrapersonal intelligence is the ability to control your emotions and get the job done. Even if the job is life threatening, many people are not successful financially because their intrapersonal intelligence is weak. People with limited intrapersonal intelligences often say, I need job security, or that sounds risky. These are examples of emotions doing the thinking, not intrapersonal intelligence. As I studied more about Gardner and his theory of multiple intelligences, I realized that the A students were those who have high linguistic and logical mathematical intelligences. Reading, writing, and math were easy for them, but very difficult for me. I read and wrote slowly, and I only liked maths if I was measuring something like my boat or my money. My intelligence strengths were spatial, bodily, and intrapersonal, which is why I doodled in class, built a boat, and was not threatened or motivated when teachers told me I wouldn't get a good job if I didn't get good grades. At this time, you may want to ask yourself, of the seven intelligences, which are you strongest at? You may want to list them in order, one being the highest and seven being the lowest. I encourage you to read Dr. Gardner's book, Three Parts of the Brain. Albert Einstein is credited with saying imagination is more important than knowledge. As an entrepreneurial educator, I did a lot of research on the different parts of the brain. Boiling it all down to overly simplified terms, we have three parts of our brain, namely left, right, and subconscious. The left brain. Generally, this part of the brain is used for reading, writing, speaking, and logic. Kids who do well in schools have well developed left brain from Gardner's work on multiple intelligences. The left brain would be most associated with linguistic, logical, mathematical, intrapersonal intelligences. Writers, scientists, lawyer, accountant, and school teacher are professions for such people. The right brain. This part of the brain is often associated with pictures, art, music, and other more non-linear relationships with creativity and imagination. From Gardner's work, musical and spatial intelligences would be most associated with the right brain. Designer, architect, and musicians are professions for people with these dominant intelligences. The subconscious brain. This is the most powerful of the three brains because it includes the old brain, often called the primitive brain. It's the primitive brain that is most like a human animal's brain. It does not think but rather reacts, fights, flees, or freezes. From Gardner's work, the intrapersonal intelligence would most relate to the subconscious mind. In my opinion, if it is a person's intrapersonal intelligence that ultimately determines if they are a success or failure in life, love, health, and money. This is because the subconscious mind is the most powerful part of the brain, especially in pressure situations. The subconscious mind also affects our bodily actions via bodily kinesthetic intelligence. For example, in the game of golf, pressure may cause a golfer to chalk and miss an easy putt. Subconsciously, a person may freeze and not take action out of fear of making a mistake, or stay at the job for security rather than the love of the work. People with high intrapersonal intelligence have the ability to control the subconscious brain's desire to fight, flee, or freeze. Instead of flee, they may decide the best thing to do is freeze. If frozen, they may choose to fight. The point is, they have the intelligence to choose the appropriate subconscious response. If angry, they can speak calmly. If afraid, they can confront their fears. People think differently when their subconscious is controlled by fear. If people are fearful, then they may say, I can't do it. What if I fail? Or that's risky. Compare that to people who is in a fight state subconsciously, who might say, I will show them. I will get that deal just to prove I can do it. Learning to choose your subconscious state of mind before thinking and making a decision is very important. When I was in Vietnam, I felt better, flew better, and was more confident when I subconsciously chose to fight. When I was in a fleeing or fearful state, my thoughts were fearful. So choose your subconscious state of mind before using your left and right brains. Professions requiring tremendous control under stress are best for people with strong intrapersonal intelligence. For example, police officers, emergency room nurses, and doctors. Firefighters and soldiers require high intrapersonal intelligence. I would say entrepreneurs require a higher level of this intelligence. Which brain controls your money? The reason I became curious about the brain and how it works is because I wondered why so many people say one thing and then do the other. For example, I might ask a person, do you want to be rich? Most people will say from their logical left brain that I really want to be rich. The problem is found with their logical left brain. The problem is a subconscious brain saying, not you, you will never be rich, or how can you be rich, you don't have any money. In most cases, is the subconscious fear of failing that holds people back. It is this fear of failing that teachers use that teachers used to motivate people in school. I remember my teachers saying to me, if you don't get good grades, you won't get a job. Later in life, when the A student who got the good job want to make career change, their fears hold them prisoners. For example, I have a friend who is an attorney, an A student from Harvard who wants to change but he can't. He is afraid of doing something new for fear of failing and not making enough money. He says to me, I have been an attorney for so long, I do not know what else to do. Who else will pay me what I am earning? He has a brilliant left brain, an underdeveloped right brain, and an out of control subconscious brain. Again, the subconscious brain is the most powerful of the three brains. The subconscious brain is so powerful that it controls our addictions. For example, most smokers want to quit. You can logically explain it to their left brain, all the harmful effects of smoking, and show their right brain horrifying pictures of lung cancer. But if the subconscious mind wants to smoke, this person smokes. In other words, the subconscious brain controls your life regardless if you are an A or F student. For most people, when it comes to money, there is a battle of brains going on inside of them. It is their conflict that causes many people to live below their means when in reality they want to improve their standard of living and to be rich. As a teacher of entrepreneurship and money, I find other people, even well-educated ones, who are addicted to being poor. Something in their brain keeps them poor. Instead of turning everything they touch to gold, everything they touch turns to lead. Increase your financial
Battles
IQ.
of the brain.
Chapter number 9. Develop your financial genius. I didn't know I wasn't smart until I went to school. For 17 years from kindergarten,
As a teacher, this battle
all
of the
way through
brains
college,
made me curious.
school was
I
a
was
struggle.
puzzled
I was always labeled
by
an
the
average
conflict
student. No matter
because
which
a
class I
person's
was in, there
logical
was
and illogical
always
mind
a student who who were smarter, more
I
gifted, and
realized the
faster
same,
learners than me.
and that
School
true
seemed
for
easy for the smart kids. School
education
was tough
that
for
true
me.
education isn't simply a matter of
The
teaching
only
students
A I ever
to
received
read,
was in
write,
workshop because I
and
loved
memorize
working with my
answers. I
hands.
realized that to be
I felt a
effective, true
bored for my school
education
project while my
had to
classmates were
align
making
the
salad
power
bowls
of
for
all
their
three brains
moms.
instead of the three brains
I also didn't know
working
I was
against
poor
each
until I
other.
went
They
to
had to
school.
work together.
When I was 9 years
If a
old, my
person could
family
align
moved
and
across
develop all
town,
three
and I
brains,
went to a
he or
school
she
for rich
had a
kids.
great chance of
Interestingly, there was
success. Greater chance
two
of success in
elementary
the real
schools
world.
directly
The
across
problem with
street
traditional
from each
education
other.
is that it
On one
focuses
side of
only
the
on
street
one
was
part of the
Union
brain,
School,
the left
on the other
brain.
side
In
was
other words, you
Riverside School.
could
Both
be
were
a
public
left brain
schools,
genius
one
and a
school for
subconscious
the rich
moron.
and the other
You
for the
can
working
know
class.
what to do in your left brain, and in your subconscious brain be
Originally,
terrified
Union
of
School
actually
was
doing
for the
it.
children
Worst
of the
of all, many
sugar
people leave
plantation
schools fully
union
able to
workers.
read,
Hence the
write, or
school's
do math,
name, Riverside,
but are terrified of
for
failing
the
and seek
school
security
of the children
instead
of
of
sugar
opportunity
plantation
in the
owners
real
and
world.
managers.
They
I
are taught
attended
to value
Riverside School because
knowledge
the
over
house of our
imagination
family
and over the
lived
ability to
in
integrate all three
happened to
parts
be
of the
on the
brain.
side of the street
After
next
years
to
of
the river.
striving to be
Even
best
though I
to
was
integrate all
only
three parts
9,
of the
I was
brain,
aware that my classmates at Riverside School lived
these people are told
higher
by
standard
financial
of living
experts to
than my
diversify
family.
and live below
Many
their
of my
means.
rich classmates lived in
To
an
a
isolated
fearful
community
subconscious brain,
connected by a
this
bridge
advice
across the river.
sound
Every time I
intelligent
crossed
and
the
logical.
bridge
For
to play with
years,
my friends, I
those
knew I was
people
crossing into a different
then
world.
turned
On
over
their side of the bridge, my classmates
a portion
lived
of
in
their paycheck
stately plantation
every month to their financial
manor
expert with the
homes.
hopes that
On my
they
side
know
of the
what
bridge,
they are doing.
homes
At the
were
same
a
time, the
lot
richest
less
investor in the world,
stale
Warren
tea.
Buffett, says
The home
diversification
we lived
is
in
a
was
protection
a
against
home built
ignorance
for
and
plantation
it is
workers. My classmates paid
a world ruled by left-brainers. The world is run by left-brained people. The problem with left-brained people is that they think there is only one brain and only one intelligence. Many people are not aware of the other parts of the brain and the possibility of other types of intelligences. When you ask a highly educated left-brained person for a definition of intelligence, he or she replies, "If you agree with me, you are intelligent. If you don't, you are an idiot." In the world of money, those left-brained people believe making money is by the numbers formula, a mathematical equation. That is why when the market crashed, many funds crashed in unison. The funds are run by academic geniuses, all following the same formula. Here's another quote from the August 24, 2007 Wall Street Journal article on quant funds. Justin Lahart, How the Quant Play book failed. A number of quant funds which use statistical models to find trading strategies, reported heavy losses this month. In many cases, the managers pointed their fingers at their quantitative hedge funds, essentially saying that all owned many of the same stocks, and their models told them to sell at the same time, driving down the share prices, hurting everyone in the process. In the other words, when the A student used their linguistic and logical mathematical left brains to invest in the stock market and came up with the same answer, just like in school, and who pays the price for the losses, not the A student. They have steady paychecks. They are employees, not investors. Learning to win using your whole brain. Warren Buffett once said, "You have to think for yourself." It always amazes me how high IQ people mindlessly imitate. As an educational entrepreneur, I began teaching students to think outside the box and to create rather than imitate. I was surprised at how frightening this teaching process was for many of my students. Most had been so frightening into needing job security, a magic formula for investing and avoiding mistakes, that breaking the bond of that fear was the hardest part of my job. These were smart, successful, well-educated people who wanted to make changes. They were not poor, unsuccessful, and uneducated. My job as a teacher was to show them how to use their primary intelligences, all three brains, to win financially. I often called my business program "Learning to Win Using Your Whole Brain." To get people's attention, I often said a student work for the A students work for the C students, and B students work for the government. Obviously, this did not make the A student happy, but they got over it once I explained the logic behind my findings. Poor and middle class dialects. Neuroscientists have recently discovered that the brain has mirror neurons. Many of these scientists believe this discovery is more important than the discovery of DNA. A neuro mirror is in overly simple terms is equivalent of monkey see, monkey do, or birds of a feather flock together. That is, our brains are programmed to imitate what we see others do. It explains why quant fund managers invest in the same stocks, why poor people stay poor even though they earn a lot of money, and why a child raised in England will speak a different dialect of English with a different accent than the children born in the US or Australia. Mirror neurons of dialect and accent limit the scope of our world and who we associate with. Many kids have a tough time leaving Hawaii because their dialect of English is Pidgin English. Kids from Hawaii who speak Pidgin often go to mainland schools with big Hawaiian clubs so they can feel comfortable. Many of the kids at Union School spoke Pidgin. The schools from Riverside were forbidden to speak it. I believe this made a tremendous difference in my life and why I went to school in New York and not at the University of Hawaii. In the world of business and investing, poor people speak a poor person's dialect. Instead of using the language of business and investing, they say such things as government programs, welfare, and assistance. The middle class has a different dialect. They say diversify and live below your means. Buffett, the richest investor in the world, says it's not that I want money, it's the fun of making money and watching it grow. Again, this is an example of different English dialect reflecting a different mirror neuron brain. Every group speaks a different dialect. For example, when golfers get together, they speak a completely different form of English. When they talk about a birdie, they are not talking about shooting wild birds on the golf course. However, you go in the world, if one golfer says to another golfer, I shot a birdie, every golfer knows this person scored one below par, which means it was above average play. In the same way, simply put, rich people speak a different dialect. It's a matter of different brains and different mirror neurons. That is why crossing the bridge at age 9 was life challenging and why I do not live below my means or diversify. That is why even when I was broke, I did not drive cheap cars, wear cheap clothes, or live in a cheap neighborhood. It's a matter of mirror neurons and of standard of living. Today, neuroscientists believe that mirror neurons are the most powerful learning parts of our brain. In the classroom, it explains why some students are teachers' pets. Since some classrooms are led by left-brained people, they tend to favor the kids with the same intelligences. On the flip side, these teachers tend not to like kids who are artistic, musical, creative, physical learners, and not easily intimidated. By the time college comes around, most of the kids who are not linguistic and logical, mathematical are gone. They have been labeled and eliminated. Sadly, the kids who are eliminated often leave school feeling stupid. Imagine if that happens to you at an early age. How does this label affect the rest of your life? In an experiment conducted by Harvard professor Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson in 1966, teachers were told that certain kids in their classrooms were geniuses even though they were not. In almost all cases, those kids received exceptionally high grades. In other words, researchers found that it was the teacher's perception of of the child's intelligence that had the greatest influence on a child's learning. In the world of investing, this is called a bias. In race relations, it is known as prejudice. This is an example of the impact of mirror neurons. In simple terms, mirror neurons means our brain are like television transmitters and receivers. Even though we are not physically talking to one another, our brains are communicated at very deep levels. For example, when we walk into a room and most of us immediately sense who likes us and who doesn't, even though nothing is said. This is the worst part. I learned that
if I did not feel good about myself, people did not feel good about me. In many instances, another person is only sending back what I'm broadcasting. In other words, if I think I'm a loser, other people will think of me as a loser. The good news is that you and I can change their perception of us by changing our perception of ourselves. This can be done by adapting our mirror neurons. It's not easy, but it can be done. For example, if I had not changed my perception of myself, I would never have met and married a beautiful woman like Kim. Someone like Donald Trump wouldn't be my friend, and I wouldn't be financially secure today. If I had not consciously changed my perception, I would probably still be a shy, fat, poor kid speaking pidgin English. Even though I graduated from a very good grad school, I left no feeling. I left not feeling smart. I left feeling that there were people I would never be as smart as. I was always average. When I interviewed for jobs, the first question asked what school I went to, and if I had a master's degree. If I had a master's degree, I had a better chance of being hired. Once again, even though I was in the business world, I was still in a classroom in a world dominated by left brain intelligence. In 1974, while working at Xerox, promising the company that I would get my MBA, I began researching the brain and different ways of learning and teaching. I was looking for a way to win on my terms, not on their terms. Being raised in a family of school teachers, I realized their measure of success was the school a person attended and how many advanced degrees he or she had. In the world of big businesses, it was pretty much the same thing. In most major corporations, employers want the pedigree of prestige that comes with advanced degrees from recognized schools. In other words, graduates from Ivy Leagues schools are better than graduates from the graduates of state universities, which are better than graduates of community colleges. In the world of big businesses, the school you attended can give you a better job, a better title, and a better paycheck. That is the measure of success. Being around my rich dad, I realized this measure of success was how much money he made, the people he spent time with, the freedom to work or not to work, and how many jobs he provided. I realized I had better decide whose measure of success I wanted to base my life on. Since I did not think I could win at my poor dad game of school and big business, I decided I had a better chance of winning at my rich dad's game. That that is when my real education began. I decided to follow in my rich dad's footstep as an entrepreneur and real estate investor. I knew I had a better chance in those areas because most A students are employees looking for high paying jobs and investing in paper assets such as stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Since I was a C student, I realized that I needed to use all of my three brains, not just my left brain, if I wanted to learn to win. The questions for you are: what is your measurement of success? Where do you have the best chance of winning? Is your brain being trained to win? Are your brains working together, or are they working against you? Two disadvantages. Over the years, I discovered there are two disadvantages people had when it comes to money. They are: number one, our schools did not teach us about money. Even an A student leaves school knowing very little. On top of that, via the recently discovered science of mirror neurons, most of us learn about money from people who also are not financially intelligent. This is why so many people have middle class inspiration, that is, living below your means, saving money, and staying out of debt. Number two, our schools do not strengthen the subconscious mind. In fact, rather than educate, schools depend on fear to motivate. Threaten rather than teach, imitate rather than innovate, punish rather than encourage, play it safe rather than
think bigger and say what a person wants to hear rather than what a person needs to hear. Due to these two factors, many people buy when they should sell, save when they should spend when they should save, are fearful when they should be brave, and are brave when they should be fearful. Examples of such non-controlled, irrational, financially foolish subconscious brain behaviors are: number one, all the quants funds selling at the same time, crashing the market because they were all invested in the same stock. They were selling when they should have been buying. Panic comes from the subconscious brain. Copying or mimicking comes from the fear of being different, so they to do all the same thing instead of being creative and risking thinking differently. Number two, when people receive a raise or come into some money, they often spend it because they feel good instead of paying off bad debt. I know of a gentleman who inherited nearly millions of dollars from his parent. Immediately he bought a big house, 2 new cars on credit instead of getting out of bad debt. His elation got him into great debt. Today he is out of money and trying to save his house. Number three, when the economy turns down, the sales prevention department of many business takes control. When sales drop, most business cut down or advertising, promotion, and sales staff. Rather than save, a business needs to spend. In a bad economy, the business needs to spend more on advertising and promotions, hires more sales reps, offer more sales incentives, and be more creative. In other words, be more right-brained and communicate more. Instead of the sales acquisition department taking the lead, the sales prevention department takes over. The sales prevention department of most companies is made up of left-brain people such as accountants, attorneys, and salaried employees, generally people with strong left brains but terrified subconscious brains. When the sales prevention department takes over, many employees lose their jobs. In my opinion, when times are tough, it is the sales prevention department that should shed a few employees. The subconscious brain thinks it's intelligent. The problem with the subconscious brain is that it can be your greatest friend or your worst enemy. It takes a person with higher intelligence to step back and objectively determine which brain is talking, the friend or the enemy. When it comes to highly emotional subjects such as money, sex, religion, and politics, it requires a highly evolved intellect to be able to detach, expand, listen objectively, and then think clearly with both left and right brains. The problem with the subconscious brain is it's reactive, not intelligent, and not able to weigh pros and cons, arguing with an idiot. It is impossible to be logical with a person speaking from his or her subconscious brain, because the subconscious brain isn't logical. It can't think. It can only react. The problem is when people are speaking via their subconscious brain, they still think they are being logical and intelligent. For example, when I suggest that a salesperson spend instead of saving during a recession, in most cases the subconscious brain takes over and begins giving the businessman the logical reasons why he or she needs to cut back to lay off employees and go into a money saving mode. To most business people, this is logical and intelligent. They do not want to learn more. Their mind is made up. The brain is closed to new ideas. If you push the issue, the mind becomes defensive. The walls go up, and instead of fleeing, they want to fight. They want to defend their decision to be right. Instead of learning, they become idiots. The problem with arguing with idiots is that there are soon two idiots, you and the person you're arguing with. One of the reasons poor people remain poor is because they have a poor people's subconscious mind. When I talk to people who are struggling financially, many will defend their right to be poor. They say such things as, I had rather be happy than rich, or you have to be a crook to be rich. If you argue with them in an attempt to open their minds to new ideas, the subconscious brain often becomes more closed, more self-righteous. Soon there are two idiots having a friendly argument. A similar event occurs with many employees and high high paid executives who like their job but want to do something else. Instead of doing what they want, the subconscious mind comes up with logical and reasonable reasons why they cannot. When informed about the high taxes they are paying as high paid employees, they may reply, well, you have to pay taxes. If pressed and informed about better investments, high returns and less than taxes, they may reply, that sounds risky. They close their minds to new possibilities because of fear. If you argue, they are again two idiots. To change your life, change your environment. In my research and education and on education and how we learn, it became very clear that environment was the most powerful teacher of all. That is why the latest validation by neuroscientists discovering mirror neurons is the brain in the brain is so important. Science is finally finding out what many of us already knew. To change your life, first change your approach. Most of us know that if we want to lose weight, we have a better chance of success by going to a gym rather than going to a restaurant. If you want to study, it might be better to study in a quiet library rather than trying to read while driving a car, which I have seen many people doing. If you want to relax, we leave work and go to the beach or climb a mountain. And if you want to become rich, you need to find an environment that is conducive to becoming richer, an environment that strengthens all three brains. Ironically, work and school are not those environments for most people. The power of environments. If you want to grow richer and more successful, it becomes critical that you find an environment that allows all three of your brains to grow and gives them the time to develop. By 1974, I realized that I would never be hired for an A student. For example, a doctor or a lawyer would never hire me because doctors and lawyers need academically and professionally smart people around them. A doctor doesn't want a clumsy nurse, nor does a lawyer wants an incompetent paralegal. Since I was a C student, I needed to find a way to get A students to work for me. That is when I decided to be like my rich dad and became an entrepreneur and real estate investor, and not like my poor dad who was an A student and a school teacher. I chose to become an entrepreneur and real estate investor because I am a slow learner and I knew I needed time to develop. I was not looking to become rich quickly. I was looking for an environment that suited me, where I could spend a lot of time learning slowly. Another important lesson for being an entrepreneur was that I could surround myself with smart people. I know that I'm not linguistic or mathematical, so I need these people as part of my team. I am still an average writer, average at maths and terrible with details. When it comes to sports, I knew I was better at team sports such as football, rugby and rowing. I'm not good at individual sports such as golf or tennis. Knowing this about myself, it seemed more logical to me to surround myself with smart people who also like being on a team. I found out the hard way that many smart people are not good on teams. That is why they excelled at school, taking tests on their own. In the world of business, I take tests every day, but not as an individual. In my world of business, I take my tests and solve my problems with a team of smart people. In other words, my genius comes out on a team. For others such as Tiger Woods, genius comes out through the individual. The question is, are you better off an individual or on a team? Do it your way. This does not mean I am saying that you need to be an entrepreneur or real estate investor. I am telling you to do what I do. What I am saying is that you may want to consider a learning environment that improves your chances of winning financially. Find your own environment and your own way to financial success. For example, if you think you can become a pro golfer, then you obviously need to spend much more time at the golf course engaging the mirror neuron in your brain to learn with the best golfers you can find. The reason the discovery of mirror neurons in the brain is significant to me because ever since 1974 I have spent most of my time with entrepreneurs and real estate investors. I'm constantly seeking opportunities to do business with great entrepreneurs and real estate investors. That is why writing a book with Donald Trump in 2006 was so important to me. More than the book, it was a great opportunity to learn via mirror neurons by spending time with a great man. Spending time with him took me perspective on business, life, and standard of living to a whole new level, almost as much as crossing the bridge to my rich friend's home when I was a 9-year old. Finding the environment. Today, many business schools asked me to come and speak to their entrepreneurship class. A common question the student asked related to financial intelligence. Number one, making more money, is how do I find the investors? How do I raise the capital? I understand the question because it was a question that haunted me when I left the security of Xerox and became an entrepreneur. I had no money and no one wanted to invest with me. The big venture capital firms were not knocking on my door. My answer to the business students is you just do it. You do it because you have to do it. If you don't do it, you are out of business today. Even though I have enough money, all I do is raise capital. That is all my friend Donald Trump does. His job is to raise capital. That is job number one for an entrepreneur. As entrepreneurs, we raise capital from three groups of people. They are your customers, investors, and employees. Your job as an entrepreneur is to get your customers to buy your products. If you can get customers to give you money by buying your products, your investors will give you lots of money. And you have employees, your job is to get them to produce and make at least 10 times more money than you pay them. If you cannot get your employees to produce at least 10 times more money than you pay them, you are out of business. And if you are out of business, you do not need to raise any more money. Obviously, this is not the answer most MBA students are looking for. Most are looking for the magic formula, the secret recipe, the quick business plan to riches. Many business school instructors squirm because most of them teach entrepreneurship but are not entrepreneurs. Most still have need a steady job, a paycheck, and are hoping for tenure. Again, it is the effect of our brains mirror neurons not agreeing with opposing thoughts that causes them to squirm. Many business schools would rather bring in CEOs to lecture who are employees rather than entrepreneurs. The eyes tell the truth. While sharing my views on what it takes to raise capital, I watch the students' eyes. In 70 to 90% of them, I see fear. Their eyes become glassy, and their breathing becomes shallow. Blood has flowed from the left and right brain and into the primitive brain, the oldest part of the subconscious brain. Consequently, about 10% of the class chuckle and smile. They like my answer. Their eyes become brighter and they become excited. They know they can win. They know they can beat their classmates. They know they can become entrepreneurs despite an environment that thrives on fear of failure. All three of their brains are firing in alignment. Developing the three parts of the brain. For those who have played my cash flow game, you may recall that to win the game requires a lot of left brain financial knowledge and right brain creativity. Since it is only a game being played with fake money, the fear of failing or losing money is greatly reduced, leaving the subconscious mind more or less neutral. Once a person understands the game, subconscious mind shifts from fear to excitement and the joy of winning. Learning becomes fun and exciting. All the three brains are being educated and developing. New possibilities are coming for an expanded whole brain. The cone of learning. In 2005, Arizona State University did a study on the viability of my game for teaching the accounting and investing to business school students. Their findings were extremely positive and favorable, including that students actually learned faster and retain knowledge longer than they learned in other ways. The second best way to learn. As you can tell from the chart, the worst way to learn is by reading, and the second worst is by hearing a lecture. The most popular way is to teach in traditional schools. At the top of the cone is doing the real thing. When I told the MBA students to just go out and do it, many froze. Obviously, there is a gap between reading lecture and surviving in the real world. The Arizona State University study pointed out that just below real life is simulations or games. The study confirmed the cone of learning and that our game was the best way to learn about the left brain logic combined with the right brain creativity of money management, accounting, and investing. Instead of being subconsciously fearful, learning was fun and motivating. Students felt more self confidence, more empowered, eager to learn more, and better able to use what they had learned. The university's findings were consistent with my findings as an educational entrepreneur. I found that by focusing on Howard Gardner's fourth intelligence, bodily kinesthetic, student learned faster and more fun, and retained the information longer. Instead of just lectures, we played different games to make different points. I encouraged playing and making mistakes, and then we debriefed once the game was over. The learning was powerful because games involved all three brains. Many times participants became upset, angry, or sad. They did not like the emotions, um, but they have to deal with it somehow. My job as an instructor was to guide the participant away from blame and emotions and into learning the lesson the game was teaching. Once participant got into personal lessons from the game, some broke out laughing and saying, "I didn't realize I do the same in real life." Once this recognition, a relationship between behavior in the game and behavior in real life, the participant has the opportunity to make changes if he or she wants to. At the moment of recognition, the aha of life, all three brains are working together. Once that occurs, the participant is often open to learning more and growing. One more success story occurred recently at a boys and girls club in a very poor part of Phoenix. A team from my company set up a cash flow club, once again teaching financial intelligence, where our game was powerful, profound, and life changing. One particular participant was a student who was labeled learning disabled by the school system and placed in a class for slow learners. After playing the cash flow game a number of times with his friend, he slowly began to improve his reading and math skills. Today he's in regular class. This is the power of coordinating all three parts of the brain in a cooperation, peer-to-peer learning environment. Change your environment, change your life. As an educational entrepreneur, it became apparent to me that environment was the strongest teacher of all. I recognized that I could teach and inform, and yet if the participant went back to the same environment as before, the effect of what I taught was diminished. In other words, if the person went back to the same job where mistakes were punished and creativity was suppressed, what I had taught him or her was of little value. The old environment won. There's a proverb that goes, "If I knew where I was going to die, I would not go there." Today, I know there are millions of people in environments that are not best for their learning, wealth, and personal development. Their work and home environments are not increasing their financial intelligence and wealth. Instead of becoming richer, they become prisoners of their offices and their homes. Instead of seeking success, most people live in environments that reward playing it safe, not making mistakes. But as Paul Tudor Jones says, one learns from mistakes, not successes. Finding your genius. For people to develop their genius, they need to find the environment that supports the development of their genius. For example, Tiger Woods' environment is the golf course. He would not have done well as a jockey. Donald Trump found his strength in the tough world of New York real estate. That environment challenged him, taught him a lot, and developed his skills. This is not an easy process. As you know, Tiger Woods works very hard at being a golf genius. Donald Trump works very hard at being a genius at real estate development. If you have ever seen the buildings he has developed in Manhattan and around the world, you know that it is easy to see him drive. Oprah survives and thrives in a very tough environment of television. One of the reasons many people did not develop their genius is simply because they are lazy. Many just go to work to collect a paycheck. It is easier for them to be average than to work hard at developing their genius. My question to you are, what do you think your genius is, and what environment is best for you to develop it? Another important question is, do you have the courage to change the environment? Imagine your future if you did. No, for many people, the answers to these questions are I don't know or simply no. For most people, being comfortable is more important than finding and developing their genius. It is far easier to be average, work hard, collect a paycheck, save money, diversify in mutual funds, and live below their means. If this is you, then keep doing it what you are doing. Every one of us is different. We have all different strengths and weaknesses. That is why I do not recommend that everyone do what I did. Even though it is pretty easy to be an entrepreneur, I know that being a rich entrepreneur is not easy. The world is filled with entrepreneurs who are average. The same is true with real estate. The world is filled with real estate investors who do not make much money. My point is this: we all have a unique talent or genius. If people want to become rich, maybe even super rich, they need to find an environment that allows them to develop and apply their genius. This is not easy, but it can be done if you are dedicated and have the drive to win. In the real world, dedication and drive are more valuable than good grades. Environments that make you rich. If you want to become richer, it is important to continually upgrade your environment. That is why I shake my head every time some expert recommends living below your means. By living below your means, you continually live in a lesser environment. As a young boy, every time I crossed the bridge to a rich friend's neighbors, my brain was absorbing what it is like to live at a higher standard of living, a standard I wanted to live at. My brain was looking for ways I could achieve such a standard of living. This does not mean running out and buying a big house, flashy cars, new clothes, and get into piles of bad debt. What I mean is to consciously and intelligently challenge yourself to improve your standard of living by increasing your financial intelligence. The best way to increase your financial intelligence is by first finding the environment where your genius can grow and develop. That can be as simple as going to a library and reading a book by a person you want to be like, or by looking at magazines with pictures of stately homes. The first step is to consciously begin to stimulate your mirror neurons to the standard of living and to the people you want to be like. In summary, financially weak people are people who tend not to develop their intelligence. They seek easy environment and easy answer. These are people who get pushed around, pay too much in taxes, work hard, and live below their means. They may be smart, good, and academic, but without the financial development of all three brains, they will most likely remain weak financially. Success requires some degree of mental and physical toughness. If you can train your left brain to understand the subject, engage your right brain to come up with creative solutions, keep your subconscious brain excited rather than fearful, and then take action while being willing to make mistakes and learn, you can create magic. You can develop your genius.